Hello and welcome to the School Safety Free Period. I'm Amanda Klinger.
And I'm Dr. Amy Klinger.
And we're the founders and directors of the Educators School Safety Network. We're a national nonprofit and we provide educator-focused school safety professional development, resources, and technical assistance to K-12 schools throughout the United States and Canada. You can find us at www.eschoolsafety.org. In our daily work as trainers and researchers, we typically take a fairly studious approach to the critical work of school safety and violence prevention. However, in this, our School Safety Free Period, we are a little less formal, we're a little less academic, and the script says a little more fun, but I would postulate we're a lot more fun. And we examine school safety issues and current events in a more informal, conversational fashion. So, Dr. Klinger, what do you have for us today?
A lot more fun than what?
A lot more fun than in our normal, formal, academic work.
I feel I'm a lot of fun all the time, in every situation.
Well, there you go.
But you raise a good point. We are coming off a couple weeks of lots of conferences and academic stuff. So I think we should do a little bit more ridiculousness today.
Oh, so like a pure fun one.
How about pure? Well, ask the people it happened to. They did not necessarily find it to be pure fun. But...
Well, it's fun for us. No one was injured and fun for us. So that's like kind of best case scenario in terms of a school safety podcast.
Well, and I think there, we try to have sort of, there's an object lesson here.
Mm-hmm.
But I think this particular one I find very interesting because there isn't, it's more of a sliding scale. I'm not sure that we can make a hard and fast determination. So, we have a situation, a couple of different ones, and I'm sure that our listeners could do 30 seconds of Googling and find a whole bunch of other ones. But it is that time of year where people begin to go, you know what would be funny? And then fill in the blank at my school.
You mean like senior pranks?
Senior pranks, graduation, overzealous parents, people that feel like it would be really cool or really funny or really influencery or something with social media for me to do all this kind of stuff. And it does tend to have some consequences. So there's a couple of them. One I ran across, or actually was given to us by a listener, where they had a situation where a dad, I don't know how he managed to locate this, but had a Bigfoot costume, as you do, as everyone does, and decided it would be very funny to put on his Bigfoot costume and walk around the school, the outside of the school. Well, as you can imagine, this prompted a lockdown, although I don't know what level of lockdown one would do for a Bigfoot. Do you do it like there's an animal, or do you do it as like a person? I guess it depends how you feel about the legend of Bigfoot.
I have to admit, I am not super up on the legend of Bigfoot, so I don't know the level of threat posed. I guess my presumption would be that a Bigfoot would be friendly, but maybe not. So,
well, I think it's supposed to be a person, a human, because he walks upright, as did this dad in the costume.
So it's a person with like a physical deformity that they have so much hair and they're nude?
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know that much about Bigfoot. I guess I should have done my due diligence.
Yeah, I have to admit I didn't research Bigfoot before this. Okay.
And done lots of reading about it. But let's not go into the weeds of the legend of Bigfoot too far. So the issue is that you could argue both sides. You could argue, what is wrong with you that you think coming to the school and lurking around the outside of the school where, is a good idea? And then the other side is he's dressed as Bigfoot. Clearly it's a joke. And then maybe the truth is somewhere in the middle. And it does raise the question of how do you as a school respond to that? Call cops and have them, haul him away, or what, what do you do?
Yeah, I mean, I understand it's harmless, you're dressed as Bigfoot. I get that. But I mean, we are living in a time now where you ought to know that type of thing might cause panic in people. I mean, when you go to the movies, you can't, almost all theaters now have policies. You cannot wear a costume that has a mask. You cannot have a costume that has fake weapons. I mean, that's, I think at this point, most theme parks are the same way. You know, places where people might wear costumes, you know, they've anticipated the parts of a costume that potentially would belie or hide an actual threat of violence. So, I mean, there's part of me that, like, you know, it's 2024, that sort of thing. And you said about it's influencer-y. My question was, is there any indication that this was done as a prank to be filmed for the internet? Because I have a lot less grace for that.
Not this one. Stay tuned. Not this one. But I think, you know, the countervailing argument to that, which I'm not saying I support either, is, oh, come on. You know, at what point is, you know, don't get, you know, be more chill. What do you know, clearly it's a Bigfoot costume. What's the big problem? You know, we can't do anything. Everybody's offended by everything. Everyone is triggered by everything. I mean, so there is this, you know, these two kind of dichotomous points that
but my question is, say they went into a level 1 lockdown, right? And if okay, so when we work with schools and we talk about having various levels of lockdown as having multiple tools to respond to different types of situation, I would argue that a level 1 lockdown where we account for the students, we have a normal day, we aren't panicking, we aren't screaming in terror, where we're accounting for kids and we go, something weird is happening and we're going to respond. We're going to have this like low response, but we're going to respond and we're going to pay attention. I would advocate that that's probably a pretty prudent approach. Now, if the response was something weird is happening, scream, cry, hide under the desks. I mean, that would be maybe we need to be more chill. But I would tend to say that, you know, as a person who perhaps in my personal life has been made fun of quite a bit for overreacting to things like that, I would say that having a like leveled, smart, I see something weird is happening, I'm paying attention, I'm accounting for the students, but we're going to have a normal day and it doesn't have to be traumatic. I kind of like that approach, honestly.
Yeah. Well, and I think that school safety aside, there is, and of course, this is me being the fuddy-duddy or the 80-year-old perspective, whatever, because I'm not 80. But, I mean, there is, the school safety thing aside, we're having school, and we're here for a reason. If we were just all here to mess around, then we don't need to be here. So if we're having school for a reason, how about if we do the Bigfoot costume at the baseball game or at the whatever event when we are not trying to have school and do academics and protect kids? I mean, so it just seems like, you know, there's a lot of poor judgment to go around, it seems like. And I get, oh, it's funny, and I don't really get it. But I mean, I guess you could make that argument. So that if in and of itself, that was the only one. But clearly, we also can see lots of other ones. I also was given one about a situation where this was not in a school. So this is sort of taking the next argument of, okay, well, what if it's not in school? Where a guy had like some weird kind of mask on, and he was going up to kids at an athletic event to scare them.
Mm-hmm.
Or so that's how it was reported on social media, that here's a weird guy and he's scaring kids and he's going up to kids he doesn't know and filming them. And, you know, so then, of course, it just, you know, escalates from there. Well, of course, come to find out, he was doing some kind of a video with his own kids. So he was filming his own kids. Now, were there other kids that maybe got in the film? I don't know. And were other people uncomfortable with what was happening? Yes. And so that's kind of back to your point of, I want to do something provocative. I want to put something on social media in the hope it goes viral. And then I end up, you know, potentially impacting a lot of other people that didn't ask to be a part of it.
So it's a problem of main character syndrome.
Well, I don't know what that is.
Well, like this person clearly felt like they're the main character in the creative work here. And so if I scare other people's kids, so be it. If other people's kids end up in this video without consent, so be it, because me making this video is more important than, normal human social interactions.
And also, there's probably some of that of, come on, wouldn't it be funny? A lot of people think that this kind of stuff is funny, and they don't realize that some kids, just because my kids think scary masks are funny doesn't mean that someone else's kids feel that way. Some kids are more sensitive to that kind of stuff. I can tell you probably as a kid, I would have been, one of the kids that was more upset by it. And so we have that balance of what we think is fine and then what everybody else thinks is not fine. And I think that takes us into the discussion of pranks, the senior pranks. Where does the school come down on that? Of, do you allow that? Are we going to shut everything down so that we never do anything fun and there's never that sense of camaraderie? And, when people look back at their high school careers, they don't talk about the really cool geometry class. They talk about, we did this one time and we had this fun experience and this prank and so on. But, we see everything from property destruction and vandalism under the guise of a senior prank through, another one that was given to me was the kids wanted to camp out on the lawn of the school. And there was a lot of division on people going, it's fine, they're seniors. And then other people going, there's no supervision, it's trespassing, they shouldn't be there. So it's really I think it's a tough thing for schools on where you come down on that.
Well, I think what's tough with the senior prank specifically is that I would guess that a good number of years ago, a senior prank didn't need to have permission of the school for it to happen. So you had less. I mean, the reason people are saying you can't, camp on the front lawn in a display of, we like this place, we want to camp here. The reason you can't is because of attorneys. I'm sorry. But it's people like me who are like, if you acquiesce to those kids camping on the lawn, you are responsible for what happens while they're there. So that's kind of the unfortunate part. And then what then comes out of that is, instead of allowing or acquiescing to pranks like that are probably pretty harmless, don't really involve property damage, are kind of a nice little display, when you tamp down, or when there's the perception that you have tamped down or stamped or stomped on something that was like nice and cute and fun, that's when I suspect it's more likely for you to get into more of the damaging type one. I think what would be
relations
I think what would be really interesting, and I don't think we have time for it in this podcast, what would be to examine the link, and I think there probably is one, between the type of prank that the students choose and the community and the culture and climate of the school. Because I would bet, kids who had a positive experience and felt like they belonged at their high school are going to consequently be less interested in, let's trash this place on the last day. I think, for example, at my high school, my freshman year, the senior prank was that all of the seniors parked at the mall like a block and a half away and brought little kids tricycles and Power Wheels and like little kid bikes, basically, and had a police escort, and they rode their little tricycles and little kid bikes the last block to the school and parked their little kids' Power Wheels in the senior parking spots. Like, to me, that would indicate you have pretty healthy school climate and culture. That the kids, that the seniors did this thing that was like funny, no harm, no damage, that I would say is probably indicative of a pretty positive school climate and culture.
Well, and there's so many things that play into it. What is the role of the administration in, are you going to encourage it? Are you going to discourage it? Are you going to,
they're in a tough spot
the other way? Are you, I know one school in particular, I just spoke with the administrator the other day, is their perspective on the prank was you're cleaning it up. They did not do a ton. They didn't do a ton of punishment to the kids. It wasn't like now you can't walk, but they, they just determined who they were and said you need to make it right. You need to bring it back to what it was before you guys came on campus. And it wasn't anything so horrific, but there was, work that needed to be done. Then they said, we're not going to have our maintenance and custodial people clean this up. You're going to clean it up.
Yeah.
And so I do think, you can't just go, oh, well, it's fine. But you also can't go, we're going to prosecute to the fullest extent of the law.
Sure.
It's a tough one. It really is.
Yeah.
I guess the only thing I'd say about that is we know that it happens every year. So it shouldn't be a surprise to anyone that you should be thinking about it and having discussions and paying attention to what kids are talking about and trying to see, is there a way to sort of preemptively prevent or steer people away from a particular course of action?
You know what? Administrators should start planting out there information about clever, non-damaging ideas for senior pranks. Like, just start, you know what I mean? Like how, like in a PR campaign, how you can like plant stories and then people start talking about it. Plant stories of clever, non-damaging, fun senior pranks and just start planting them.
Well, the other thing that I'll say about it is at least senior pranks, the kids aren't on their phone and they're actually like talking to each other and like physically doing something. So, I guess there's that.
Yeah.
But I do think that, it's one component of a more complex thing that happens this time of year when people want to be more freewheeling and they want to, and, I just think there's a little bit more of a discrepancy between what people are okay with and what people aren't. And I equate it to when you close school because of a weather event. Either way, you're going to have people that are going to be very upset that you closed school or that you didn't close school. And so there isn't really a way to please everyone. So maybe instead administration, leadership, teachers should be having conversations about what's best for kids.
Yeah.
Is how can we allow that freedom, but yet put some guardrails?
Yeah, well, I think we've had a lot of really good discussions here about sort of the cultural implications of some of these things. I did want to just circle back really briefly to the actual discussion of the lockdown. I think, I'm thrilled no one was hurt. I'm glad it was just a fake Bigfoot and not a real Bigfoot for the lockdown. But I think it is a good reminder.
It was a real Bigfoot. That would have been,
I don't know what,
pretty cool.
Honestly, I don't even know what it means if it's a real Bigfoot. Are we happy? Are we worried? Like, I don't even know what that means. But I guess I think it is a good reminder for schools to make sure that we have our communication plans, because, the whole notion of something is odd, we're going to account for kids, but we're going to have a normal day. That's easier, said, as long as we have our communication plan is in place. We were able to communicate to everyone effectively why we're in lockdown. We don't think that there's we don't believe there to be imminent danger, but we're accounting for students and we're monitoring the situation. And that is only useful or effective, or that is only done with minimal trauma to people if we have our ducks in a row in terms of our communication plan, in terms of our procedures being firmed up.
Yeah. And it is a good opportunity to in a well-crafted communication, to show both sides of, we prioritize student safety. We understand that, people are a little more informal and want to do these pranks, but I guess hopefully it'll be written better than that, but it does give the school an opportunity to present to people the two sides of the coin that they're up against.
Right.
And to maybe discourage it from the future.
Right. And to be able to say to parents, we were into a lockdown posture today. We were able to do that in a way that was not traumatic and not upsetting and was a good practice of our procedures and protocols, because we have communication systems in place for us to do that, because we had practiced these things. There was no one that was in a panic and didn't understand what a level lockdown was. And so hopefully your school would be able to say that, right? That we We had a thing. We went into a level 1 lockdown as a precautionary measure. It turns out there was no real threat, and we went back to class, and it was like a drill in terms of the level of trauma or anxiety. And so I think that's a really good lesson for schools. Are you in a position to be able to do that? Could you go into a level 1 lockdown for something that it turns out to have just been silly and not dangerous? Would you be able to do that without a high level of problematic fallout afterwards? And the hope is yes. And if not, let's get to practicing to be able to do that. So,
yeah, it makes me think of, like Bigfoot, like tears the door off the front of the building, like, like a King Kong sort of situation.
I don't think that we can say Bigfoot anymore unless we get sponsored by that company that has those ads, those like disgusting ads with the Bigfoot. So I think we got to stop here because we are not sponsored by any company at this juncture. So
let's just say this. You only have a few weeks of school left. Let's control ourselves. Is that a good way to say it?
There you go. Well, thank you for joining us on this episode of the School Safety Free Period. Please connect with us via social media. You can see links in the show notes. We'd love to hear from you. Also, be sure to check out our free resources and other information on our website. Again, that's www.eschoolsafety.org. So until next time, thanks.